gotta bug Ken Wheeler again to get us the new intro music.
Oh, so sweet.
So do you think my mic was hot? I think everybody heard me?
It was. Yeah, it
All
was.
right.
I heard you. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream. We are excited and honored to have you, as always. We are still working hard on Remix over here. So, everybody who thought Remix was dead or was going somewhere or didn't, whatever, they can rest easy for another month at least.
Okay, so it was Labor Day weekend, right? We just got here in the U.S.
It was, yes, Labor Day. Were you laboring?
No, I was riding electric dirt bikes, and it was awesome.
You were celebrating the fact that you normally labor, and today is not a day of labor.
Yeah, it's like on Mother's Day, we ignore my mom completely.
That poor girl. I'm sending your mom a bouquet of flowers next Mother's Day.
So I was driving home and stopped to eat dinner with my family and plugged in our car to charge while we're eating and then walked the dog, let him go to the bathroom and stuff. And as I'm walking back to my car, a guy walks up to me and he's like, "Ryan?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, I saw the Remix license plate and I thought, no way, is that Ryan Florence? And then I saw a guy with a beard walking a dog and I was like, it's Ryan. And I had to come say hi.
You have a Remix license plate?
Yeah, man.
I didn't know that. What does it say? Does it say Remix?
Yeah, just Remix.
Like just the word spelled out, REMIX.
Yeah.
On your license plate.
All right, that's it. I got to pull up a picture for you.
What car?
The Rivian. What? Oh, I'm not on my personal computer.
How come I didn't know this?
I have a picture of it on Twitter. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it from Ryan Florence.
This is Remix. That's hilarious.
Here we go. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Let me share my screen. A tab. There we go.
Got to see this license plate. Look at that.
Remix.
That's rad, dude.
So I was
Looks good.
I was at the DMV registering the car.
Yeah.
And Utah has those cool just black and white license plates.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Which license plate do you want? Do you want Ski Utah or Life Elevated or In God We Trust?" I was like, "Do you still have the black ones?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, we still got those." I said, "I want that." And he goes, "You want to customize it? You want a vanity plate?" And I was like, "I'm vain enough that I want the black and white one, but I'm not so vain that I want a custom plate." He's like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." So he goes over to his computer, starts typing. Then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, actually, I think I am that vain. Is Remix available? And he said, yeah. So I got it.
Oh, that's rad.
So dude saw it and he was like, I was like, no way. Is that Ryan? So he came up and said hi. And apparently his company, oh crap, I just forgot what it's called. No, not Trustpilot. Something else. Anyway, he's like, yeah, we just switched over to Remix a couple months ago. And he's like, I've never had more fun building a React app than when we switched.
Dude, I love it so much when people use the word fun.
Yeah.
When they're using Remix. I think that is, for me, that's the payoff.
Yeah.
Right there. When somebody says it was fun, it's like, that's it. That's all I needed. That's because that's the goal right there. Some guy reached out to me on Twitter the other day who was he just used that word. He was like, he was talking about, he was using that headers library that we talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh yeah, it's fun working with headers. And I was like, yes, nice. That's the goal, man.
Then when I came and sat down in the restaurant, my family was already seated. And my son was like, who is that? And I was like, oh, just a guy that knows me from Remix. And he goes, that's so weird that just random people know who my dad is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's working on some cool stuff.
Oh, man. Yeah, Remix is fun.
Cool, man.
That should be our new tagline.
Well, I'm glad you got the license plate. I tried to make a black and white license plate like that for my car here in California, but I got pulled over and they gave me a ticket. They're like, that's not a state issued plate, because I had put like a vinyl covering over it. That's not a state issued plate. And I was like, yeah, it's not. They gave me a fix-it ticket and I had to take it off. Oh,
California, man.
We have the black and yellow plates. I think I'll get one of those.
Oh, yeah, those ones are pretty cool. Yeah, the black and white ones everyone's buying those now here in Utah.
Yeah. It's my
father. We don't want your weird license plates with weird crap on it. Just something that looks nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my brother-in-law has it. My whole family who lives in Utah has it.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. We need to give these people what they want. These people they did not come here to hear us go on and on about cool license plates.
I'm just checking. We already have some chat messages. Maybe we can just bang these out real quick. What are the plans with Remix? Will it continue? Oh, when React Router 7? We're getting close. We're going to show you some stuff today, how far along it is, and I guess we'll cover what we're waiting for next before we can get an alpha release out there. Should be pretty soon. I guess, Brooks, you just want to throw the questions out there at me, or I can start reading them. What are the plans with Remix? We'll continue to receive updates, such as updates related to pre-rendering. So Remix, as we've discussed before, what Remix is today is pretty much just a bundler around React Router and a few server things. So we're moving all that stuff over to React Router v7. But Remix v2 will continue to receive security updates and bug fixes and all that kind of stuff. But in practical terms, React Router v7 is Remix v3. They're the same thing. Even today, they're already the same code for the most part. Remix just calls into React Router for almost everything that it does, except for the bundler stuff and a few server things. So yes and no. It won't get feature updates in the form it is today. Those feature updates and things are going to be in React Router v7 and 8 and 9 and whatever else. But Remix in the future, and Michael's going to show us some more stuff like we did last week, has a little bit different path and in a lot of ways a little bit more server-centric since React itself has taken the responsibility of most of what made Remix on the front end unique. Our room for innovation now is more on the back end, and we'll let React just do all the front end stuff for optimistic UI and actions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yes, it will get updates in its current form through React Router v7, and then it will get updates in its future form as Remix itself. Hopefully we're good at talking about that now.
Totally. No, it helps just to say it again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and then the pre-rendering stuff specifically, that will be in React Router v7. We got a little pre-render hook in the Vite config, and so you can pre-render some things.
Yeah.
Which is marginally useful, but people love it.
Totally.
Anything else I should answer? Yeah.
Somebody said, is Remix an alternative to frameworks like Next? Indeed it is. Yes, it is. It is an alternative.
That question means that we're still reaching new people, so that's cool.
That is cool.
What are your plans to keep Ryan's ego in check once people post weekly downloads of Remix packages to say Next is better? Man, my ego is in check. Every day I wake up with a new injury.
Is Remix dead? All right. Enough of these questions. Why don't you give us an update on V7? How that's coming?
Sounds good. I'm gonna go entire screen here. Let me get this out of my way. And I'm just gonna go over the change logs real quick. All right, so on the React router side, we've had one release since last time, 626.1. Just some more of this patch routes on navigation, and this is the React router API that supports the fog of war, or what do we call it now? The lazy route config, or route discovery, lazy route discovery. So like we always say, Remix is just calling into React router. So this is the React router API that Remix calls into for patch routes on navigation. And so this allows us to only have a subset of routes to run. And then when you navigate, if we don't have a route that matches, you can go somewhere and patch those routes and add some more. So not only does this support our lazy route discovery in Remix, it supports people's micro front end use cases and stuff like that too. So just a couple little changes there. And then on the Remix side, same thing. It's all just implementing that stuff where we can find the routes. We've gone over this, but those are just now in the recent releases and renamed it a bit. And then a single fetch is just getting a couple little fixes as well. But that is, I think we're pretty much ready to go on that too. So all the foundational stuff that we need, I think is there for single fetch for the React Router V7 release. And the biggest thing, it's not in the changelog because it's not released yet, but I think one of the most exciting things that we have merged into dev is Routes.ts. This might be a little controversial for some people, but we are all super jazzed about this. So Routes.ts is an alternative and the default for configuring your routes in React Router v7, which again is basically Remix v3. So in React Router v7, you don't have a default file convention for configuring your routes. At its base level, it can just be this array that says, all right, here's my path. What file should we turn into a route module? And what are the child routes? Some nice advantages of this is we can use normal route pattern matching syntax with the colons instead of dollars or brackets. We can have question marks for the on the end for optional segments instead of coming up with stuff like parentheses. Like we can just use stuff that we've been using for a decade or more decades for route matching. And it even enables more sophisticated route matching in the future. Now this API is a little bit verbose. This is the target API. So this makes it really easy to build conventions and target this, this structure, this routes config structure. And this gives you some type safety too, so that you put the right types on the other sides of these values. And then we got this convenient API, which is what I will personally be using, route layout and index. And I mean, if you're familiar at all with React Router, this is going to make a ton of sense immediately. So you can say this is a route at /, and this is the route module. Now I want a layout. We don't have to have some like gross underscore prefix to say, okay, this is a layout route. It doesn't have any paths.
Oh my gosh, I hated that.
Yeah. Or before it was like if a folder exists with the same name as this route file, then it becomes a layout route. Mm-hmm. There's just so much magic, and it's so weird one way or the other. But now it's just simply saying I am a layout route. That's all you have to know. And actually, I've got this pulled up in a little demo app over here. And so you can see we can get some type safety in here too, where I can say layout. And you can see that it's got saying, hey, you just have a file and you might have some children. So you don't have to like guess at what these kinds of, application layout. Fantastic. And then you could have we could put all of these in here, right? And maybe this is like contacts, or maybe like this is app. So it's really easy to have multiple layouts. Maybe this is like your auth layout. So you have, and then you could have all your auth routes inside of here. Yeah, this is going to know exactly what I want. Don't even come up with your own convention. Let Copilot give you your convention.
Let Copilot write your website.
Yeah. So really cool. That's how easy it is to just have multiple layouts for different route groups. There's no magic incantation. You don't have to be like, okay, well, let's see. This is a route group, and this is for my auth, and then this is going to be contacts.tsx, and like it's so nice. And then of course you can put the files
wherever the heck you want.
Wherever the heck you want. Let's see. I want to demo a little bit more code over here too, but let me get this back into working order and see if there's anything else I want to say here. That's right. And so before people freak out like, oh, but I love my file-based routes.
No, file-based routing is from the devil.
Well, we support the devil. So
no, he showed up. He showed up with his horns and his pitchfork, and he's like, you should do file-based routing.
So if you want file-based routing and you want a convention, we're not sure what the name of this is going to be. We think it's just going to be like a file routes, and then we could have multiple conventions out of here. So this will probably have a different name. But remix routes, this again, this might have a different name. But this will be the current file convention in Remix, and you can just say, do that. And then you can go and look at the magic file name incantations and learn how to use them and continue to do it exactly the way you did before. But there will always be a Routes.ts file, so that if you come into a project, this is what I hate about file-based routing, is you jump into a project and you try to figure out, like, how does this app like even start? Like, what is the entry of this thing? Is it really Vite build? Like Vite build is the entry of this app? I mean, technically, yes. But after that, now what is? It's like, I don't know. It's this file convention. So go figure it out. Now at least you have this Routes.ts that's like, this is where things start. And then you go, oh, we're using a file convention. And then you can go and look at the README for whatever this package is. And now you know what that convention is. You don't need someone on your team or to like just figure out something. There's code there that tells you that there's a convention going on. And then of course people could come up. We've got the third-party remix flat routes that people really like. So they'll be able to do that themselves as well. The remix routes is going to fully support the old define routes thing, so that this doesn't need to make any changes. But I suspect the next version of remix flat routes is going to just want to target this API. And then you won't need two packages. You won't need to bring in ours and then also bring in theirs right here.
Totally.
And then this is cool too. You can do mixed usage. So you can say, all right, let's keep using the route convention, but we agree with Remix. We're kind of sick of these weird looking files, and we want to just use this config. Well, you can just start pulling them out of here and putting them up here and use both of them next to each other. Heck, you could come up with a Next.js convention and use it in React Router v7.
You absolutely could.
Yeah. Whatever you want to do. But
also eat rocks for breakfast.
Yeah.
You can.
If you can't tell, we kind of hate file routing conventions. Our whole team doesn't, but Michael and I certainly do. Yeah, so at the base, it's this type. This is the type that defines your routes, which looks exactly like create browser router today, except for it's a file instead of an element. And then this is the convenient one for, this is what I will be using. But yeah, so check this out. This is really cool. So I've got a little app running here. Yep, it's running. And then let me go to my local host. This is our little contacts app thing that we have. But I can, like right now, everything is in this routes folder. But what I really like about this is I can make a new folder called like contacts. And then, oh, I already have that folder. Let's delete this. I'm just going to move this out to the root, and then my routes file, that's not in routes, that's just in contacts. And now that's there. And then I could have like a marketing or something that, or like public facing, and I could put the home page in there. Maybe your file system matches your org chart as it tends to do in the end.
My file system matches my org chart.
And so we could say, okay, yeah, here's the marketing one, here's the contacts, and this gets really interesting. You could even say like,
you guys get that folder.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can say contacts in here, and we can say, all right, here's my marketing routes. Put these somewhere else. Merge those in, because this is just an array. There's nothing magic. We're not doing any like bundler shenanigans of like extracting stuff out of here. It's just a JavaScript config file, and maybe these contacts want a layout around it, right? And so you can just add that layout right there. And you could even move this into a separate file and import it if you wanted to. One of our apps at Shopify that's enormous, millions of lines of code, each one of these folders has its own Routes.ts file to say, hey, here are the routes in this folder. So you could do that and then just import it here and then construct them all together. I'm going to get rid of this layout, save this just to kind of prove it. And everything is still working with all that pulled out of there. Put the files wherever you want. Have whatever convention you want.
Yeah, man. That's the power of the programmatic approach.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a file system naming convention that we force on you. And it underneath the hood, like it's like you said, you can use the next file convention. You can use the old remix file convention. You can use your own company's custom file convention.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody has to prescribe anything to you anymore. And then one person can come along and say, here's the convention that we all use here at Acme Co. Right? Like, yeah, that's why I'm so bullish on the programmatic routing, and because we started out with a file-based convention, and then it was like, oh, flat routes. Now that's the thing. No, flat routes, they suck just as bad as like the other ones, but they just suck differently.
Yeah.
So like, I'm done with the suck. That's why I'm done with the. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm too salty about it.
We should have leaned on our Rails roots instead of looking at what the current zeitgeist was. Yeah. With this stuff. It kind of harkens back to PHP, where it was like, stick a PHP file on an Apache server and you have a route. That was cool. But those didn't support patterns. That's the difference. I think that's what I got caught up in, is it was just like, yeah, it's just like PHP. Stick a file here, you have a route. But those didn't have URL pattern params and stuff like that. Yeah, it was
literally just the name of the file.
Yeah, and so those were all just static segments, which for just a bunch of static segments is a great way to set up routing.
Oh, looks like Ryan froze. I think what he was going to say is it's a bunch of static files, and that's how you set up routing. But anyway, see if we can get him back, because he's sharing his screen right now and I'm not. Brooks, are you there? Am I frozen, or is Ryan frozen?
No, it's just Ryan. You're good.
Okay.
I pinged him.
It's one of those situations where I was like,
yeah.
Is it me or is it him?
No, yeah. For a second I was like, oh, am I out? But no, it's just Ryan.
Can you turn his screen off so he's not sharing it anymore, and I can?
Yep. Yeah.
Sort of keep going.
Also, oh, there he goes. He's gone completely now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. That's what happens, I guess, when you're, inventing the future.
Yeah.
Your internet connection craps out on you.
Let's not get too conspiratorial. you know.
What I could do is I could keep going and talk about some of the patches that I've been working on. That's what we were planning on kind of doing in the second half anyway, and we're almost at 9:30. Oh, Ryan's back. Ryan's back.
Or is he? Wait.
He's like picking his nose now.
Sorry, Ryan.
Okay, no, he.
Are
you there, dude?
I think I'm back.
I was gonna start talking about some other stuff because you were gone.
My kids, I don't know what happened. We lost an Ethernet cord or something.
They getting on the Minecraft server again?
my kid took my Ethernet cord, and I forgot that I wasn't hardwired, so my Wi-Fi just pooped out on us. But I got the cord unplugged.
That was perfect timing. You couldn't. Amazing. You couldn't time it more perfectly than that. I got the cord. Boom. Internet connection goes out. Oh my god.
Oh man. I'm crying over here.
All right. You know what I'm gonna do?
I'm back.
Are you really back?
I hope so.
All right.
It's all right.
Now, if you crap out again, I swear I'm just gonna keep going on my other stuff.
Just go without me, man. Leave me behind.
You've got a couple minutes to finish up on
show must go on. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say other than it's going to be awesome. And if you have weird feelings about it, then just use one of the conventions and don't
talk to your therapist.
Yeah, you'll be all right. But give it a shot. Give it a shot when it comes out. I think you'll love it.
Yeah. React Router v7 is going to be awesome.
I guess the last thing I want to say on that is people are like, oh, when is V7 coming? When is V7 coming? That's right. So the last, here, let me share my screen again. Entire screen, this one. So we've got over here. Pretty much all. So single fetch, the thing that kind of exploded into something bigger than we realized, is pretty much done. Routes.ts is now done, and now Typesafe routing. We're very, very close. This isn't what it looks like. We actually don't have to change a whole lot. We need to update this. But anyway, this is the last bit, I think, before we can do our alpha release, is getting Typesafe routing. So this is going to do a handful of things for us. First of all, one of the things that it'll do is if you say like ID right here. Oh, never mind. That's not happening anymore. But we're going to be able to read this Routes.ts file and do some type magic so that you can say link to, and then this will get auto-filled with all of your route patterns that exist in this route config. And then you'll also get automatic, let's see, details over here with your loaders, these params. Pedro can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're not even going to need any of that crap. And this params.
No, you're not going to need that stuff.
Yeah, and then this params.contact ID. This is also going to be right. You can pop this open, and you're going to have. It's going to read the Routes.ts file. It's going to see, okay, you named it contact ID for this file, and so the loader over here is going to have params contact ID automatically there for you. And then also this little invariant check that's become kind of common in Remix, because if you get rid of that invariant check, let me get this all the way back. If you get rid of this invariant check, now all of these things get all mad, like, I don't know, you could have any param in here.
No, those will be fine.
Yeah, you don't need that anymore. So you could just get rid of that. Just cleans up a lot of things. And you'll get the same type safety in here on these params. And we're going to be passing in loader data to here.
Loader
data. And so it'll just be like this. And that will be automatically Typesafe. It's going to know from this loader, what did this thing return? It returns a contact, and so you'll just automatically get that over here. Same with action data. All that stuff will be inferred for you, so you don't have to add. It's going to be beautiful. You don't have to add any of this generic junk in your actual code, which means you don't have to import any of that crap. Don't even need to import use loader data either. You're just gonna get all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of crammed. We made a little bit of scope creep. Originally, we were like, let's just take current remix and shove it over to React Router v7 the way it is. But we kind of bumped up the scope a bit because we really just wanted, there's hundreds of thousands of remix apps. There are millions of React Router apps. So we knew a handful of pain points that we really wanted to get rid of for those millions of apps as they start to migrate over. And so that's why it's taken a little bit longer than we expected. But I think it's well worth it for all those apps, because React Router v7 is going to be powering the majority of React apps for years and years and years. And so we want this first impression and this first migration over to some of these new APIs to just feel fantastic. And since we already knew where we wanted to go with them, we're going to go there before we release anything.
Yeah, man, I love the work that Pedro's been doing. That type safety in the routes is great.
Yeah, Pedro and Mark have both been, and Jacob. We always say people's names, but we never say Jacob because he's just the grease on the wheels of everything everybody is doing.
Yeah, Jacob's got his hands in everything.
Yeah.
I should not call out individuals, but
no, it's good. Their work is awesome.
Well, cool.
Did we get any questions on any of that stuff that we should address? Or maybe we don't have time because I lost my connection.
Loader data and access data will be injected into the component. Yes. No more use loader data.
Yep. You can still use loader data if you want to, and you can use it like deeper in the tree if you know where it's at, but you're going to have to do your own type safety there.
Yeah. I think we're good. We're good. I don't see any other questions in the channel.
Cool.
Cool. Let's talk about some of this stuff.
Oh, React Router v6 migration plan code mod. We don't know enough about React Router apps architecture to do a code mod. Like we don't even know where your routes are configured, right? Like where are you calling create browser router? So we can't really do a code mod for that. But remix apps, since we know what the file system looks like and we have a Vite config and stuff we can look at, we can do a code mod for remix apps.
Honestly, just having a Routes.ts file actually gives you the ability to code mod route configs in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having a
where are your routes?
Where you're like, the routes live here.
Mm-hmm.
So in all the apps, once we know where they live, we can do code mods for future versions.
Yeah.
So gosh darn flexible right now.
All right, you good? You want to tease us with the future?
Yeah, I just want to. Well, yeah, there are a couple of things. So yeah, so I saw a little conversation earlier. Somebody asked about Hono. They're like, "You're going to integrate Hono into Remix?" Hono and Remix actually share, like, first of all, they overlap a lot. Hono is a router, Remix is a router. Hono has ideas about how you do layouts and stuff like that. Remix has ideas about how you do layouts and stuff, right? So there's a lot of overlap there. You can run Hono on the edge. You can run Remix on the edge, right? You can run Remix natively in a Cloudflare worker if you want to. So there's not a whole lot of like we don't need Hono. We don't need Hono as a framework, right?
Well, and one of the main things of Hono is building web servers on the Web Fetch API. And while I think that their abstraction is better than ours for that lower level concept, the that was one of Remix's biggest things when we came out that I had never seen anyone else do before, was these adapters to run a server on any of these places on the web fetch API. So it's almost 100% overlap.
Yeah, like we were like I think we were doing that before Hono was doing it, right?
Yeah, before Hono existed.
So it was like yeah, so I don't think Hono's really doing a whole lot of stuff that we need in Remix. Like it wouldn't benefit us to build on top of Hono. Now, if you're using Hono, if you're totally bought into like, oh, you know, I love using Hono, I love using this request response API on the server, you know, like great. By all means, go for it. Run Remix on Hono, right? Remix at the end of the day is just, we stop kind of at the request handler level, right? So Remix itself is just a request handler that takes a request and returns a response on the server side.
Yeah, so Hono just replaces our adapters. If you want to use Remix with
exactly.
Hono, it already works. You just will use their adapters, not ours.
Yep. Run Hono, mount Remix into your Hono app, you're done.
Yeah.
So we're not really, you know, we don't need to integrate it. You can just run Remix on Hono if you want, or you can say, you know what, I don't actually need Hono. I'm just going to run Remix. And I'm going to do all the same things that Hono's doing. I'm going to run it on the edge. I'm going to, you know, do all this. I'm going to containerize it and put it in Docker, whatever you want to do with it. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of address that question real quick. So I've been publishing quite a bit of work over the last month. In the month of August, I published 5 packages. We talked about 2 of them on the last live stream. I want to talk about the other 3 today, and then I'll be publishing some more this month that are going to be kind of showing you, not you, Ryan, but you people listening, the kind of direction that we're going with future Remix. So yeah, so let me just kind of show you the next piece of this. Let's see, I'm going to show my window. There we go. Okay, so I've got this Remix the Web repo that I've been working on. It started out as separate repos. I quickly saw the folly of my ways and started condensing the packages into a single repo. We started out last week. We talked about the headers repo and the multi-part parser package. We talked about those 2. You know, doing streaming file uploads, working with headers, making that a little bit more fun. It was actually really cool. This last week, I got 2 different messages. One from somebody who was using multi-part parser in their Astro app. He was like, yeah, it was really fun. I was using multi-part parser to handle file uploads in my Astro app. Awesome, right? Like we're publishing pieces here in this Remix the Web repo that can actually be used in Remix, or they're just using web standard APIs. So you can use them in any framework you want. You could use them in your Next app if you want. You could use them in you know, you could use them with Hono. You can use them with Astro, right? These are just kind of like foundational kind of core pieces of that we think are useful in general for anybody that's building for the web. And they're built on kind of this core philosophy of just use web standard APIs, right? So that was the headers API. That was multi-part parser. Actually been getting some good PRs to the headers API. Alex gave me a great PR for the what was it? The cache control header. And then I got another good one for the accept language header. So if there's a header that's one of your favorite headers that's missing from the headers library, go check that out. And would love to get a PR for that. I'm going to talk about a couple of other libraries that I released this last month, starting with this form data library. So this is kind of this one where this is kind of like the top of the iceberg. This is the one that this library is basically, it's a wrapper for request.form-data, right? So, you know, let's say I'm in my request handler here, and I want to get the form data back, right? So normally I could do a let form data equal await request.form data. And we talked a little bit on last week's live stream about this API and why it's currently kind of limited in at least in like Node's implementation of like the Undici, the libraries, the Node's request implementation, why form data is kind of limited. It basically just has to buffer all of the files as they come in. And this is going to be the same case, in like Node fetch or whatever, if you're using some polyfill, and they don't, have any idea, or let's say you're just using straight up request.form data in, Bun or Dino, right? Because Bun and Dino give you this request API. They give you the request handler API. If you say request.form data on those platforms, they're just going to buffer the whole thing for you. And if you're uploading large files, that's kind of a non-starter. So this is one area where the web API kind of falls down, and it doesn't really work that well for. This API actually works fine in a browser context, right? This works fine in a browser context because you have, you'll get back these file objects that essentially are like connected somehow. The browser has connected them to the user's local file system. And so they're not buffering all of the content of those files. They're just kind of sitting there like open file descriptors, almost just waiting to read from the user's file system. Or they can do those kinds of optimizations. On the server, though, we need kind of a similar way to say, you know what, like I don't want to buffer everything. I want to stream it somewhere else. So this library, this form data parser library gives you just a single function, this parse form data function. And what you do is, instead of saying request.form data, you just kind of invert it a little bit, and you say you pass your request to this parse form data function. And then the second arg here, which is really cool, is an upload handler. So what does your upload handler look like? So your upload handler is it's just a function that gets a thing that looks like a file. I'm calling it a file upload. And your file upload, if you tuned in last week, if you're familiar with the multi-part parser API, your file upload is basically just like a wrapper for one of those parts that's coming through the stream as we're reading the stream. And you can ask it, like, oh, what field did you come from? If you came from this field, okay, cool. We're going to go and store it somewhere, right? Now the file upload, what you want to do is you want to store it as soon as you possibly can, because like we said, it's reading from the input stream from the request.body. So you want to put that thing somewhere as quickly as you can. So as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, okay, where are you going to put these files as they come streaming through? You could read like, file upload.stream yourself. And you could say, for, await, whatever, let chunk of file upload stream. And you could handle it yourself here. And you could say, okay, I'm going to, go and write these chunks off to an R2 bucket, or I'm going to go and write them to an S3 API somewhere. Because this file upload, it actually corresponds to the file API. So the more I started looking into this API, I was like, this is actually really cool. Like the file API is cool because it gives us a structured way to work with files. If you've never used the file API, what can I do here? Let me open up. Let me just pop it open real quick for you. Yeah, this guy right here. This one. Okay, so the file API. You might not actually be aware that this is an API that exists in JavaScript because you don't use it a ton. Mostly it's just used kind of in the browser, and honestly, it's not super useful on the server because, like I said, you have to provide the sources up front, which is basically just like a bunch of strings and blobs, and which means you've got everything sitting there in memory, so you're buffering everything up front. But it is a really useful way to to have an abstraction for representing files. You have the name. You have the last modified date here on the file. And then you have everything that comes from blob, which is really cool because the blob gives you all sorts of ways to deal with, to work with the content. So you know how large the file is, you know what its size is. and then you can just, read its bytes as a uint array. You can grab the buffer, you can slice it, you can stream it, you can get the text on it, right? So this API is actually super useful, this file API. And so that's what these file objects are, actually. These file upload objects, they kind of extend that API. So that's where .stream comes from. It's just it's just a web standard API. So I was thinking, you could just like read the chunks and stream them manually like this, or we could give you something that's a little bit nicer. We can give you a file storage API. So that was the second library that I released this week. So this last month. So the file storage API, it's just a key value storage for JavaScript file objects. And so it gives you this really nice, let's see where we go. Yeah, here's the file storage. So the file storage library, as it's currently shipped, there are two implementations. One is just an in-memory storage, and then one is a local, I'm calling it local storage. And that thing actually goes on the file system. So the local file storage is probably the one that you want, or it's really just, it's an interface, right? It's an interface that looks like this, where you say, okay, set a key, get a key, remove a key. Does it have a key, right? This is this will look pretty familiar if you're used to working with anything like local storage or session storage. The web storage APIs look a lot like this. Basically just a key value storage, right? Except this one is, like I said, for files, right? You set files and you get files out of it. So you can set your file, it'll store it for you. You can get a file, it'll get it back. And then the important thing to realize is when you get it back, all of the metadata will be intact. So this local file storage implementation works with a local file system. Cool thing about this is so this is implemented using Node.fs, but if you look into it, Node.fs works flawlessly on Bun. It works on Dino. So these other JavaScript runtimes where you're supposed to run things, basically if a library uses Node.fs, I still consider it to be runtime agnostic because everybody implements Node.fs.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you can just, I'm sorry, I don't want that one. So you can go in and create your new local file storage wherever you want to keep your uploads. And then as these things come in, you can literally just put them in storage. And this it looks pretty simple because it's a one-liner, but this is actually really cool. So it's just streaming the file contents to storage. So wherever the storage is, again, we're using a local file storage so it's just streaming it to disk, but you could be streaming it to some network storage. Sergio is on this, he's on the live stream now. He was, he showed me something where he was putting it in his R2 bucket on Cloudflare. Really, really easy to adapt this file storage API to any large object storage that you need on the back end. And there are lots of different options for large object storage on the web today. And then just grab it back out. So the only reason we're grabbing it back out here is because your upload handler needs to give a file instance for your form data object, right? So I mean, the other thing that you could do here, right, is and this is the thing that browsers do, or sorry, this is the thing that most form data implementations do, and this is the thing that this library will do by default if you don't give it a streaming upload handler, is it'll just do something like, return new file, and then await file upload.array. Right, so this is buffering everything in memory and all that kind of stuff, right? So this is kind of like the default behavior that that Node will give you, and that the other JavaScript runtimes will give you. They'll just buffer the whole thing, and so you totally could do that like on your own, but this will you don't want to do that. This will give you the option to use a file storage object and put it in file storage instead. So yeah, any feedback or questions on that are definitely appreciated. But this is so it actually kind of begs the question. This line kind of begs the question, right? When you get an object out of file storage, right? You get a file object out of your file storage. Is that file buffering everything? And so this prompted one more library that I actually needed for to make this all work. So the last library is called lazy file. So lazy file is this one here. Lazy file is actually pretty cool. So it's like the blob file API. And so the lazy file includes a lazy blob implementation and a lazy file implementation. But these are basically lazy equivalents of JavaScript's built-in blob and file APIs. Why are they lazy? Well, they're lazy because they don't buffer everything up front. They get all your contents, lazily, sort of on demand. And so this, the lazy blob and lazy file, they're really good citizens. They implement the whole blob and file API exactly as you would expect. They just modify the constructor one little bit so that instead of building your files like this and providing all of the contents up front, you can provide something called a lazy content. And the lazy content, it's a bit of work to actually make this thing work, but most of the time, this is a very low level API. Most of the time you're not using this API directly. You're using this API if you're implementing something like file storage, your own file storage, and then it's useful. But a lazy content is basically just an object that tells you, here's the total byte length of the content that we're storing, and here's how you can stream it, right? So again, your top level API really is just file storage.get, and you're going to get a file back from that. But file storage under the hood is going to give you one of these lazy file objects. It's going to build this for you and say, okay, I'll give you an object that implements the whole file API, but it's not going to buffer everything up front. It's going to do that lazily. And so when you say, for example, file storage.get, you're going to get back in this form data object. If you say, what was that key that we were using, like user avatar? Sorry, I was right here on this line 56. So this file that I get back corresponds totally to the file API, but it just really has the file metadata, and then it knows how to stream it. So we're not reading any of the content here until we say something like file.stream. That's when we start streaming it, or we say something like file, await. You would never do this for an image file, but if it were a text file, you could say await file.text. And now you're like going to get back all of the content, and you're going to encode it as UTF-8. So these lazy file objects are pretty cool, and they're pretty useful in this file storage API. The other thing that's cool that I shipped in lazy file is this lazy file FS module. That is just like it's just cool, some cool little utilities for working with stuff on the local file system. So you're going to see a lot of code if you start digging around in Remix the Web, or if you dig around in like certainly future Remix. You're going to see that, this is how we're going to be working with the file system a lot of the time, is at least reading and writing from the file system, is with these lazy file instances. So lazy file FS is pretty cool because, when you go and open a file, it'll go and grab that file, and then you can work with files on the local file system using the JavaScript file API. Again, streaming, not buffering anything. That's the whole point, right, behind lazy file. You can do things like it'll automatically give you the file content type, so that'll be application JSON, so it'll automatically read that for you because it has MIME type built in. It's also got this write file method where you can that you can use to stream the contents of a file to any place on disk. So that's just kind of the other piece of the lazy file module that helps you work with files on the local file system. So yeah, so that was, those three libraries all kind of work in tandem. But yeah, again, the kind of the overarching point was, fixing basically request.form data. So you have this API here, so you can say, just stream all the file uploads as they come streaming in. And then, just using web standard APIs sort of up and down the whole thing so that you can, the only API that I really invented was, this one, and then the file storage API, right? And that one feels a lot like local storage, but obviously there is no file storage API built into the browser. So so hopefully y'all get some mileage out of those libraries. I saw Sergio was already using it, which was really cool. So yeah, but the idea here is, right, as releasing it, we're releasing these libraries as sort of separate packages, right? So you can totally come along and you can use like the multi-part parser, for example, from last week, which is a really nice multi-part parser. Like, it's really fast. And it gives you streams and has this like very web feeling API. You can just use that and ignore literally everything else here. Or you can go one step beyond that and say, you know what, I like this whole story for, handling file uploads. And I like how, I have this, I like using the form data API, for example, to deal with my requests that are coming in. Just one side note also is that and specifically about React, is when we start building stuff like this, if you've looked at like the React kind of server side APIs, as far as I can tell, they're not actually giving you the request. They're not planning on giving you the actual request data. I think they're planning on kind of like trying to do some of that behind the scenes for you, like abstracting it away and then just sort of giving you this form data object. But ultimately, if they want to do the streaming thing, right? If they want to actually stream these uploads to disk or to some external network storage, they're going to have to sort of go one level deeper and actually give you either the raw request data and let you handle it like this, or they're going to have to, in your use server, your server action, you're gonna have to, be able to create a server action that somehow has streaming file upload capabilities, right? So I am kind of looking at the React abstraction there and thinking like, it's not quite giving me the tools that I need to do this kind of work, this kind of low level work on the back end. And so we're starting with, we're basically just starting with, like I was saying earlier, we're kind of going bottom up. We're starting with kind of the lower level primitives that we think we're going to need. The first one was that multi-part parser. This one is like one level up, the form data parser, the file storage APIs and those sorts of things. We're building sort of the back end from the bottom up to be this incredibly capable back end that will literally allow you to do anything that you want, like anything that you want, right? You can store the file, you can buffer the file, you can tee the stream and make a thumbnail and store it over here and discard the original. I don't care what you do with, like, you can do anything with these primitives that we're giving you. But yeah, just a little note about React is that I think they're going to have to go, at least with their server action APIs, they're going to have to go one level deeper and give you either access to the raw request or give you some way to do these streaming file uploads.
Yeah, and at the moment, I'm either our use server actions are not going to be the same as React ones, or we're going to need our own kind of version of that to be able to do all this stuff that we want to do. So, yeah, we're still exploring that and trying to figure out. We want to be as compatible as possible with the whole React ecosystem, but we also want to be able to do whatever we need to do in an action.
Yeah. And You know, to my earlier point, I think these, like I said, these packages are they're individually installable and usable. So, you know, you could use this in a Next app. You could use this in an Astro app. You can use this in a Svelte app or whatever you're building. But yeah, this is the foundation that we're going to be building on. Somebody said, LM actually has a good question. So he's asking about how is this all going to come together? Like, how is it all going to work in the end? So
can I take a stab at this one?
Sure.
One thing that has really bothered me with ecosystems that develop like this, right? Like 30 small packages, 40 small packages, 100 small packages, is you end up with so many dependencies in your package JSON that it's a little overwhelming, and like they all work together and you need them all, but then like you don't know which ones are compatible with others, and this one's API broke, but I passed its output to the input of this one's API, and now that doesn't work. And it gets kind of difficult to manage in an app that many little dependencies. But at the same time, I love those kinds of ecosystems, because if I just want this file storage API, or if I just want a cookie abstraction, or I just want a little router, I can also just use those things too, right? And so one of our goals, and we don't know if people will be into it, but we saw a lot of people not just copying ideas from Remix, but literally copying our code too, which is fine. It's MIT, like that's how open source works. But we want to push the whole JavaScript backend ecosystem forward, and one way to do that is to have these shared packages. So we want to make it really easy for anyone who wants to do these kinds of things in their framework. We want to make it so they can use one of these packages without feeling like, oh, now if someone wants to use Solid Start or TanStack Start or SvelteKit or whatever, SvelteKit, depending on Remix, would be super weird. But if they just want the same cookie abstraction that we have, they could just bring in that one thing. Or if you're building your own stuff, you can just bring in one of those things. So it's useful to have these small packages, but we want to mitigate the like giant package JSON disaster of like, oh, now I've got 30 Remix packages. Do I know they're all going to work together? And so like Alum is saying, will there be an M. Jackson album where it's all re-exported? Yeah, if you're in on the Remix ecosystem, our plan right now is that these are all essentially just re-exported from Remix as deep imports. So Remix / form data, Remix / multi-part parser, Remix / file storage. And that will have its own release schedule that makes sure that all of those packages are compatible with each other. So if you don't want to be using all the things separately and having to worry about 30 things in your package JSON and which ones are compatible with each other, you don't have to do that. You can just npm install Remix, and you'll have the curated set of them that are all cross-compatible and documented together. So you're not like bouncing around a bunch of readmes everywhere to try to figure out how to put these packages together. So we're hoping that gives us the benefits of both small focus packages that can be used anywhere and have faster release cycles, balanced with having a set of packages that all work together and are documented together, and that they're gonna that have like a predictable release cycle, so you're not always feeling like you're chasing updates. How'd I do? Is that your vision too?
Yeah. Remix essentially just becomes like an editorial project.
Yeah.
And by editorial project, what I mean is, Remix is a curated collection of packages that we recommend, almost like a Linux distro, right? Where, if I'm building a Linux distro, I'm going to grab, the Bluetooth, module from somewhere, for my kernel. And I'm going to grab the file system stuff from somewhere. And I'm going to grab, the whatever, the library that I need for talking to my GPU from somewhere, right? Like I'm not building everything from scratch, but it's a distribution of all of these packages that work together nicely. So if I'm running SUSE or OpenBSD or whatever I'm running, I know that, those are essentially editorial projects. I mean, they write a lot of their own original code, but it's also like a just a curation of a bunch of other stuff that works together, and they put their sort of stamp of approval on it and say, we have tested this. We know that this all works together. We have a release schedule where we're going to be, releasing, updated versions of these packages that all work together. And we're going to let you know, if they're breaking changes and things like that, right? We're going to let you know sort of what's going on all along the way. So it'll honestly, Remix itself is going to be like a distribution of these packages, right? It's going to be almost like just like those Linux distros work. And then the hope actually is that we don't actually have to write all of the packages that are part of the official Remix distribution.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the real key. That, and the thing that really gets me excited is because somebody else is going to come along and they're going to build something in the spirit of Remix, in the ethos of Remix, that feels like Remix, right? That uses web standard APIs, potentially uses some of the other packages, that are already sort of part of the ecosystem, right? And they're like, hey, check this out. This is really cool. I extended it in a way that hasn't been done before, that you guys maybe didn't think of. I built a new piece of middleware. I built a new whatever thing that you all didn't, that didn't exist here before.
File storage for AWS's file.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's up to snuff, right? I think it's good. It's tested, and and it's good stuff. Would you consider this for inclusion as part of Remix? Right. And again, if Remix is just a distribution of packages, a curated distribution of packages, we can say absolutely. Right. Like instead of sort of the current model of like, we publish Remix and then a bunch of third parties publish things called Remix-auth and Remix-image and Remix- cook me a chicken pot pie. I don't know what, that's kind of the current model. And you know that you can trust the Remix package because you're like, okay, that one's maintained. I don't know about these third-party things. Like, those are just, whatever, one-off people. I don't know if I can trust those. This will be like, I think, a much healthier model for growing the ecosystem and saying, look, it's all Remix. Like, it is all part of the official distribution that is supported by the team, by the company, by Shopify, again, that's now sponsoring the development of Remix. And so there's no questions about like, oh, is this up to snuff? Is this good stuff or not?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that to me is the really exciting piece where, packages might start out as like a Remix dash, image package, like a Remix whatever thing. But ultimately the goal is that the ecosystem is sort of, healthy enough that we can include those packages and also not have to take on like full ownership. Like that is another super, super key to this, right? Because, we can share ownership with other people in the community and say, okay, you know what? Thank you very much for like bringing that awesome Remix caching library or whatever you're working on, that Remix Postgres thing, that Remix thing for, you built a really cool like ORM or whatever, or
we were
validation
kind of
library.
talking about like, maybe we should implement local storage and IndexedDB on the back end, like file storage. And it's like, that's in the ethos.
Yeah.
Of
Somebody
Remix.
else can come
Maybe
along and be like, you know what, I actually did that and it feels like this. And we can give them feedback and say like, you know what, I wish it worked a little more like this. And I wish it was a little more like that. Okay, great. Cool. We got it there. Let's now include it. Yeah. And here's, a Remix feature release where, we included, we're highlighting somebody else's work. They get to be a part of Remix. We didn't have to take on that extra, sort of development burden ourselves, right? That maintenance burden of like including this new feature. but they get to participate and like as a true open source project, right? And have the same level of like legit, you know, you can trust me because this is actually a part of Remix. This isn't just my like Remix dash tangent library. This is part of Remix.
And I would say that applies not just for the big OSS ecosystem, but like our own little team and then our bigger team at Shopify. The current design of Remix is very much like it has to go into the core thing in order to do anything, right? We accidentally made it way too frameworky, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so it's harder for people to work independently and to add value to the project, where this new design is far more composable and people can add value to it more independently.
Yeah.
Across the board.
So yeah, so thank you for asking that question, Alam. Hopefully we're able to, and again, the goal is a single installable Remix package that is truly open source, that is truly developed by the community, but super simple and easy to just install and go and use everything right out of the box. So,
or if you want to go super low and only use one of the pieces, it'll be published under its own package as well, and you don't need to depend on the whole Remix album.
Yeah,
I'm pumped about it.
Yeah.
I just always think about the unified JS ecosystem, which I think they've done an incredible job of building a composable ecosystem for Markdown and HTML parsing and processing. But every time I try to use it, I go to like the unifiedjs.com and I'm like, how do I put any of this together? And I end up on Remarked, and then like I end up on so many docs and so many different spots. And it's like, I love what they've put together in the composition story, but it's difficult coming at the problem every time and like having to like figure out how do I put all this together. And so that's what this Remix package is going to be, is that like you're interested in Remix or you're sold on it or you just want to play around with it, install one package. You're going to have docs that explain all of the different packages inside and how to put them together. But if you want to go super low and you just want to use one or two of them for some random Cloudflare worker that you're doing to do some sort of processing, you can just bring in the two little libraries and use them together. It's gonna be great. I've never been more excited about Remix.
Cool. So yeah, so that's the architecture. That's the overall kind of plan and vision for it. But yeah, we're over time, so we should wrap it up. Keep your eyes out for more good stuff from us. We're like we were saying, V7, React Router V7 is like right there. It's very, very close. We're all just waiting on Pedro. Everybody's just waiting for Pedro to finish up now. As soon as that dude finishes, then React Router V7 can ship.
All right, inside joke. Got to explain that inside joke a while ago.
Or do we?
Yeah, okay. Guess we don't have to. Yeah, Pedro, hurry up, man. We're all waiting on you.
And then keep your eyes out for more cool stuff, more new packages coming from me as well. We've got one that's going to drop this week. That's basically you probably saw it in my sidebar. It's basically for building fetch style servers in Node. So all of these are building up to the big thing, the big thing that we just talked about. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.